What is activity? That is a burger. These are burgers. Yes, it is still cold in Seattle. You just never know what you're gonna get. I'm Jacqueline Belle, and thank you so much for joining me on another episode of the Divorcee Diaries. If you're just joining me for the first time, I am a businesswoman. I'm also a project manager. I am a divorcee, and I'm a solo traveler, and I love sharing my tips and tricks about those areas of my life and how I can best support all of you in whatever your endeavor is for the day, for the month, for the week, whatever it may be. So without further ado, let's get into it. So today I'm going to talk to all of you about southern Brazil. Many of you probably haven't thought about visiting southern Brazil, but I would highly recommend that you rethink that thought because it is quite beautiful and I had an amazing time. Now specifically, I was in Caxias du Sol, which is in the Rio Grande do Sul, did I get that right? State, and in Brazil. And I went there because my then partner and friend and his family were there, and it was so nice to be able to be with family while and someone that I know very well within another country that doesn't speak English to that. And you have a local that knows everywhere to go and what to do. So it was a very different experience and a very, very good one, if I must say so myself. So some things to know about southern Brazil and specifically Caxias du Sol. So as I mentioned before, for currency, the currency is real. The R's are pronounced as H's. And for the airport and how to get there. So there is one airport, a small, dainty little airport in Caxias. It's very small, honestly. I think you can just fly in and it's really hard to fly out. I don't know exactly how that works, but it's hard to get a flight out of Caxias. So there's one small airport that flies directly into Caxias, which is actually a pretty big city. It's actually pretty comparable to Seattle, but they have one little airport, which is interesting. And then about an hour or two away is actually the nearest larger international airport in Porto Alegre, which I think more people might know. And that's the one that you take if you want to get usually a cheaper flight and don't mind taking a bus down to Caxias or to other smaller towns in southern Brazil, but that's something to know. So there's the Caxias airport. I'll give you the exact details in the notes below, in the show notes below. And then there's Porto Alegre, which is quite a ways away. But this is why I like to talk about which airport to fly into, because if I didn't know any better, if I didn't connect with my friend, then I would not have known that Porto Alegre was 2 hours away from Caxias. So it's really, really good to pay attention and to double check your airport, because even when you put in the city, I want to go to Caxias du Sol, and you say, oh great, there's a really cheap flight to Porto Alegre, you're really getting a cheap flight that's 2 hours out of Porto Alegre. So be very careful when you are searching for your flights. But what I love about Porto Alegre too is, and I'll talk about that later, but there's a lot of things that I really loved about. But when you first get there, it's actually very much like Seattle, which is really cool. But I'm getting off track. Okay, let's get back on track. So how to get around. So taxi is plentiful and Uber is plentiful. Again, I feel like I'm gonna just be a broken record telling you about how Uber is basically available everywhere, even though it's not necessarily legal in some of these countries, but it's everywhere, it's there, and it's working, and it's very reliable. So those are just some tidbits about getting around. Now, what I love to talk to all of you about every single time, of course, as you know, is the food. But if you saw my last video about Rio, because Caxias was my fourth stop on my Latin American trip and my second stop within Brazil, I talk about food a lot. What I want to specifically talk about in this video, the different restaurants that I went to. So this time I didn't really go to a churrascaria. I went to like 4 different ones in Rio. So it's fine. And there's some churrascarias in Seattle, so no worries there. But in Brazil, it's so interesting. When you go with a local, they just really take you around to see different areas. And what's interesting is we went to like a pizza buffet. And it was so cool where they not only bring you savory pizzas like to your table as you eat. So it's like a different buffet where you don't go to it, they come to you and your table. And then all these different amazing pizzas. And they also have not only savory pizzas, but sweet pizzas. So they'll have dessert pizzas there too. And it's really, really cool. And I was just like, I don't need to do anything. I can just sit here and eat. I ate a little too much, but it was great. So that's just one of the restaurants I thought were really cool. We also went to a really beautiful, very, very beautiful mountain buffet. And it had like it had a horse, it had this beautiful landscape. It was in the middle of this forest. And it was just very, very nice. Like we got in there, we were the first ones there, and it was a nice wide open space. And they had the line of food and everything was just amazing. They had cakes, they had different types of food. So I highly recommend going to something like that where you know that it's special because a lot of locals were there and you know that the food is authentic, which this place apparently is very known for, and it would definitely deliver. It was so, so good. I highly recommend going to a more traditional buffet of sorts, but one that's different and unique, like the buffet I went to in the mountains around Caxias du Sol. Their ice cream shops are help yourself in a way, and it's like they have like 30 or 40 flavors. It's like a Baskin Robbins, but you help yourself, and then the toppings are like, oh my gosh, everything from like condensed milk to like brigadeiros, and you know how much I love brigadeiros. To just everything else under the sun and everything else sweet within Brazil. So it was really, really cool to see. Really, really cool. The homemade food was so good. I honestly was super spoiled by my friend and his mom because, and his sister. Mom and his sister were just like cooking all over the place. So I got homemade pastels, y'all. I had homemade stroganoff. I had homemade brigadeiros. I had homemade everything was so good. So I mean, if you can, you know, go to like an Airbnb experience with a local. I love food tours, and this time I got like an at-home food tour, so that was like the best. So I highly recommend it to go to restaurants like that, and again, taste the pastels, taste, you know, the different types of pizzas that they have, taste because it's different everywhere. You know, taste stroganoff because it's different in Brazil as well. Just taste it all, enjoy it all, and go to buffets because you can taste everything in that case. Okay, and some activities that I did that I thought was really awesome. I was in Caxias for a week and a half, and I loved everything that we did. And again, it's a smaller city, so the attractions and things that you got to do were really cool. Like they had the Festa de Uva, which is a festival of grapes. I hope I said that right. Or the Grape Festival, and it only happens every other year, but I happened to be there at that time. It was so cool. It was such a great time. They gave free grapes everywhere, which was nice. They had lots of grape related things like wine all over, lots of entertainment, lots of music, also lots of vendors. So I got amazing artwork that I think is just like, it means so much to me because when I buy artwork from abroad, it just reminds me of where I was and how I got it all the time. And I brought some for some other friends as well. So it's great. If you can go, if you're there during an even year, that's when they have it, during even years, then I highly recommend going there. So the shopping was also really great. Like no matter where I went, it was just really nice to go to these little boutiques, and I love boutiques because I like getting things that no one else can get. And there, it was just lovely. I had great pieces. Actually, the piece that I wore last week when I did Rio's video was actually from Caxias, and it was really, really nice. And you could talk with people. You can talk with people when you go shopping, which you never get to do, I feel like, when you're shopping in America, or at least in a big city. So it was a nice, very nice, pleasant experience, especially the boutiques. We walked around the city a lot. It's a very walkable city, even though there's a lot of hills. It's a really walkable city and very safe. They're very, very safe there, which is good. Oh, I didn't do my safety rating. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll come back at that. But anyway, that activity was great. And then of course, because I was there with people that are with someone I knew and his family, then, you know, being able to just be with family is so nice. It was really, really nice to spend time with his family, and it was also his mom's birthday, so we were able to enjoy her birthday and actually get to see like kind of what Brazilian cakes looks like, and what, you know, people do and like what they eat around birthdays and things like that. And it was really interesting to experience and to see, definitely. So before I go into what I loved and some of the challenges that I saw or experienced in this particular area, I do want to say that my safety rating for Caxias is like a 4 out of 5. Honestly, there was only one time I think it was a little sketchy at night. We weren't quite sure about one car, but it ended up being fine. We walked past the car, it was fine. Well, honestly, it's a really, in my opinion, safe city. Again, it's a city though, so, you know, have your wits about you. It is not Japan, it is not Singapore. It is, you know, it's what 98% of the other cities in the world are, which is one that's, well, I'm guesstimating, but it's a city that is pretty safe. I would be cautious at night. I would not walk around at night still, but it's just a beautiful and really nice safe space. All right, and with that, I want to talk about the challenges I had, because I don't want to end on a bad note, but just some of the challenges. So if you thought that no one spoke English in Rio, like myself, they really don't speak English or Spanish in the smaller cities outside of the big cities, of course. But luckily I had a translator, so that wasn't too bad. And I met one other person that spoke English, and that's about it. But that's okay, right? Because they don't need to. It's just something I wanted to mention in case you're someone that gets overwhelmed a little bit. And because at that point I was traveling for about 3-4 weeks, and I was pretty overwhelmed. It was very overwhelming to have to always constantly think about how you want to communicate yourself and not being understood, and only using a translator app that a lot of people laugh at you for. So, you know, it's just one of those things. I wanted to make sure I let you know that too. And the other challenge is more personal. Actually, the whole family got COVID. So luckily I already had COVID before. I didn't get sick, and I tested negative, so I was able to go to my next country. But it definitely took a damper on almost everyone else. And we didn't get to go to the beach or anything because of that. So that was just a little bit of a damper, but it was not as bad at all, because then it was just more of just like, hey, let's be together, let's eat together, and let's, you know, just enjoy the city. And that's what, you know, what we're able to do that way. So now on to what I loved about the city. So the city is very much like Seattle. So if you've never been to Seattle, which is where I'm from, was where I'm located, Seattle is pretty hilly, not as hilly as San Francisco, but it's a pretty hilly city, and it's very green. Now Caxias is a high elevation within the mountains, and it's even more green, and there are even more hills. So if you like hills and you like greenery, you're gonna love Caxias, because it's very, very nice for all of that. And luckily, at his sister's house where we stayed, it was like they had a beautiful view because they're right at the top, and it was just wonderful to look at, and to look out the window and just to see all this beautiful green. It's even greener than Seattle, it really is. It's amazing. So that was one thing that I loved, just the natural beauty of the city. It was also really nice that it was so clean. It's one of the cleanest cities I've been to in all of Latin America, and I think that says a lot about the city and their pride in the city. Because also as a historical context, the city is traditionally a European city, so it's actually an Italian immigrant city. So there's a lot of Italians there, and in the surrounding areas, a lot of Germans. So it's very just different, very different from Rio as far as look and feel, kind of, because it felt like almost like an American city, where Rio felt definitely like a traditional idea of what you would think about a beach town in Brazil, if you will, if that makes sense. So that's great. I also really liked having someone that could translate. It was very much easier, and it released a lot of stress, especially when I was trying to catch my next flight out of Brazil. It was very, very helpful to have someone that could help you translate, because at that point I was just so tired of not being able to communicate myself and taking much longer to get to half of what you're trying to say and understand from each other. So having a translator is always helpful. And then also being able, like I said before, to meet family, be with family, and really feel like you have a home away from home. So that was really nice. So that is short and sweet bits of southern Brazil and Caxias du Sol. I highly recommend going outside of the typical areas of which most countries are known for. So, not just Sao Paulo and not just Rio in Brazil, but also try going out to some other places. And if you're a solo traveler and you're looking for places that are safe to go to in Brazil as well, I highly, highly recommend Caxias du Sol. So with that, I wish you all a fantastic, a wonderful, a lovely rest of today, an amazing rest of the week, and I'll see you again later. If you liked my video, please hit the like button and please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you made it this far, please do me one very quick favor and put in the show notes below Brasil with an S. Brasil, and let me know that, that would let me know that you watched all the way through and that hopefully you liked it. All right, with that, talk to you later. Bye.